Joining us this week for Know Your Enemy, Alex Taylor is joining us from WyoSports.net. Appreciate you joining us, man. It's a close, not a rivalry, but it's a regional matchup we got.
Yeah, we have something in common. We all hate CSU.
Yeah, there you go. Appreciate you joining us, man.
For sure, appreciate you guys having me on.
I wanted to ask you about Caden Anderson. Obviously a true sophomore, kind of a younger player, but what does it look like for him when things are really rolling? Like, what is the ideal setting for him to play his best game on the football field? And then second question, I mean, coming to Colorado, has he played in any other big games to this point, and how does he perform in those big games?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think it starts with offensive line. He's kind of said, basically, he's told us, like, he tells the offensive line, like, if you give me 3 seconds, I'm going to make a play. And that's almost a lot to ask, especially at the college level, from so many moving pieces on the offensive line. But he's really developed into a pocket passer, which is not something that Wyoming's had in a couple of years. But I think just the intangibles of being Quinn Ears back in high school and having the arm strength and the decision-making to make good throws when it matters. But the second part of that question, I mean, obviously Utah, and I've said this all week, where it's kind of all fans get to get all doom and gloom, obviously after a loss, as we all know. But I think you have to also give Utah some credit. That was obviously the best competition Caden Anderson has ever seen in his career, and that's right now I think they're top 15 almost in the country of. That's the best defense he's going to see this year, especially obviously playing in the Mountain West. And he struggled a lot. And going back to the offensive line thing, he didn't have a ton of time to throw. And just wide receivers weren't getting open. So I think this is really this CU game's going to be the real true measuring stick for where Caden Anderson is at in his development. He took over really late last year. And you can kind of say, I guess, obviously Boise State was a college football playoff team last year, and he played the first half against them last year, and then he got hurt. So I think that Boise game and last week's Utah game, those are really his two biggest tests so far. And we're going to see, I think, again, going back, I'm like, no offense to CU fans, but I think Utah's defense is a little better than Colorado's right now. So I think this will be a really good measuring stick for how good Caden Anderson can be, especially for as young as he is right now.
Alex, around these parts in Colorado, we've talked a lot about the word identity this week. From your perspective, sitting where you sit, what would you say the identity of Wyoming is, this particular team, under, head coach with Caden, running things at quarterback. On the other side of the ball, really good defense, right, at least through 3 weeks. What would you say the identity of this team is, at least at this point in the season?
Yeah, I think they're getting back to what Wyoming used to be known for, and that's obviously great defense and running the ball, winning time of possession, which obviously they didn't do any of those things against Utah, which not a lot of teams will this year. But yeah. I think in terms of identity, I mean, they're really – I guess the biggest change for me, this is my 4th season covering the Cowboys. I obviously covered Craig Bull there at the end, and this is year 2 for Jay Salvell. They won't throw the term spread offense around, but that's kind of what it is. I mean, at this point, like, you're running out of the shotgun, you got 3 wideouts, tight end in the slot. Like, they're kind of getting away from that traditional 12 personnel, run the ball down your throat, and that's kind of opened up. They're a lot more balanced, and I would say that's kind of the identity right now is they're not relying on chewing clock and running 200 yards down your throat and just keeping the ball out of your hands. I think they're taking more shots, and that comes down to going back to the defense that you mentioned. I mean, it's really just the tough Wyoming culture of the guys that you're recruiting here. A lot of the transfers that they brought in are from Division II or FCS, and a lot of those guys are using that as motivation to. I know an Akron coach kind of made a comment of, and he wasn't wrong. He just basically said, like, they got a lot of guys from lower levels of football that came into Wyoming, and So we don't know what they're going to look like, and nobody here, I didn't know what they were going to look like. And you look at a Braden Johnson who's from Oklahoma Baptist, and his high school, I was talking to him, his high school football team had like 17 players on varsity.
Wow.
And he's out here. He had an interception against Akron. He's been arguably their best player. Evan Eller, kind of same thing. He was at Virginia Military Institute for 4 years at FCS, comes here. He's leading the team in tackles, had an interception against Northern Iowa. So I think that kind of exemplifies the identity of just classic Wyoming, right? Like the guys that are maybe slept on that end up here. And 18 of these guys on Wyoming's roster are from Colorado. So you also wonder how many of those guys are maybe going into this game with a little extra motivation going into Boulder.
What's the vibe of the fan base towards this team right now? What are their expectations at? How are they feeling about this new era with a new coach compared to all those years with Craig Bull?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of disappointment, obviously, last year with the 3-9 season. You'd think that you always want to hope for some continuation of success when you hire from within or promote from within. After Craig Bull retires, you promote the defensive coordinator, and they were just killed with injuries last year. They had a tough schedule, and I think fans are maybe say hesitant. And you kind of look at that Akron game. I think we're all familiar with historically where Akron is at as a program right now. So that's, again, going back to the measuring stick part. I don't know if that's a very good indication of how good this football team is. And then same thing with you play an FCS opponent at home and win that pretty convincingly. But again, kind of run into a buzzsaw there with Utah. So I think there's just a lot of, you're 3 games in, you're a fourth of the way through the season, and you still don't really know what this team is, what this team has, and how it's going to really translate into really the most important thing here, which is conference play in a conference like the Mountain West. So I think this Colorado game, it's not like the years past. Their road P4 games have been like they go play Texas, number 4 ranked Texas with Quinn Ayers a couple years ago, or they go play Arizona State, who at the time we didn't know, but they end up in the college football playoff last year. So I think this is a little more of a manageable Power 4 road game, and it obviously helps with being so close regionally where you're a little more familiar with the history of each other. But yeah, just vibes-wise, I think this week is a really big indication of not only where Wyoming is, but where Colorado is. So I think both teams are kind of going into this with, you mentioned identity, like who are we now and who are we going to be going forward after this week?
Alex, Tyrekus Davis, I mean, he entered the portal. He comes over to Colorado over the offseason. And you mentioned, you got a bunch of players out in Wyoming who are from Colorado. Just, is there kind of like I know it's not CSU, but like a rivalry type of mentality they're trying to take into this game?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, some guys that I've talked to, like Giovanni Pernozzo's from, I think, the Fort Collins area. I was talking to him, and it's kind of the same. You don't want to loop Colorado State in with Colorado just because the history is so different, obviously, and just the programs are in different places. But I think there's definitely that aspect of CU didn't want me, CSU didn't want me, I'm going to go to Laramie. And now you're kind of, for the first time in a while, like these guys are getting the chance to play this team in Boulder that didn't want them. And obviously that's not a Coach Prime thing. It's kind of been like that historically, and CSU's kind of been the same way, where it's almost, I would say just like kind of a chip on your shoulder of a lot of these guys are local, regional, even the guys from Wyoming, you would assume they were good enough, they would get looks from 2.5 hours down the road. So I think there's probably a part of them that I think the different styles of these programs too, where Wyoming is such a hard-nosed kind of blue-collar atmosphere, and then obviously everything going on in Boulder right now, it's just complete polar opposites really of like living in a fish tank versus living in the middle of nowhere in Laramie, Wyoming. So I think there's maybe just clashing identities of these programs, which I think is something that you could see kind of reflected in the way these players maybe show up for a game like this, especially on prime time on ESPN.
Alex, I want to ask you about two players, an older guy and a really younger guy. The first one, John Michael Gillenborg, right? The big tight end who's been really productive the last couple of seasons. I think he got banged up a bit last week. You expect him to go, and kind of what does he mean for this offense, I guess, with this team, his rapport with Caden Anderson?
Yeah, he took a helmet right to the thigh in the second quarter and never came back. Jay Salvell kind of just said it was a thigh bruise, which he expects him to play, and he's probably he was their most valuable returning talent from, you look at obviously the transfer portal era where he's not been shy about saying like he had schools reach out and offer him this, and this, and he wanted to stay with his teammates and finish this thing out because he's a guy, he played 3 high school football games and still got recruited by Craig Bull as a tight end. So it was kind of a freak thing that he ended up here in the first place and has turned into as good as he is. But I guess the thing now going forward is you just got to see him kind of put it together and reach the potential that all of his coaches talk about, because he had a up and down year with injuries last year. So it's really just, you hear about the talent and you see the potential. You just got to see the consistency of going out there and proving that you can be in every down tight end who's getting 6-8 catches a game. And he's their best, one of their top 3 NFL prospects right now. Like I said, he's just got to kind of go out there and prove it with and his relationship with Caden Anderson is, I'd say, part of the reason he came back for sure.
And then the other guy, the young running back, Samuel Harris. I thought he was the Mountain West Freshman of the Week this week. He really, popped on tape to me. I think over 100 total purpose yards. Is he kind of breaking out right now over the last couple of weeks as he kind of gets more involved in this offense, you think?
Yeah, I think there's always some skepticism of a freshman coming in right out of high school, obviously, and he's kind of late to the party here in today's era, in today's world of all these transfers coming in. A lot of them come in during the spring, so he obviously missed that spring ball and the summer workouts, and then he comes in here and he's really ascended through the depth chart faster than anybody on this team. And I'd be shocked if he's not getting double digit carries every game going forward if he stays healthy. I mean, he's shown an ability. He had like a 30-yard wheel route catch. He had another, I think, 3rd or 4th down catch for a first down. And so he's kind of proven. Sam Scott's been their lead back just in terms of production, but I think their skill sets are so much different, where Sam Scott's more of the in between the tackles, really grind you out, and just a power back, classic Wyoming power back. And Samuel Harris is more, I think he's got a really good matchup ahead of him if they're able to establish that run game early and get him on the outside into space. I think Colorado's kind of shown that they're susceptible to that run game, and he's obviously going to play a huge role in that if he's able to make the right decisions, make the right reads, and obviously do his job in pass protection to keep him on the field.
Definitely. Last one here, one that we ask everyone. Wyoming wins this football game if blank.
I was generically going to just say, I mean, you got to win the turnover battle, but I think just beyond that, I think you really got to just, regardless of who's playing quarterback, I'm assuming it's Salter, you got to make him really uncomfortable. And I know he's proven, obviously, that he's got the threat with his legs. And Wyoming's play, obviously, they just played Devin Dampierre. He kind of ran all over him for the 3rd year in a row. When he was back in New Mexico, he did the same thing. So I think just they've proven that they have the ability to pressure the quarterback. Is just going to come down to finishing those plays, keeping him off his spots, and making him uncomfortable. Because, I mean, again, Colorado's shown they don't have the best offensive line. So I think if you're able to maybe expose that a little bit. And Aaron Bull, their defensive coordinator, called a really good game against Akron. And they kind of made some adjustments in that second half and made Ben Finley really, really uncomfortable. And he took a couple sacks, threw an interception in the red zone. So I think my key focus, I guess, would be defensive line / linebackers getting in on the pass rush and really, really making him have a hard time taking his time and kind of observing the field and seeing what's out there.
Awesome, Alex. Appreciate you, man. I know our fans are really going to enjoy this one. Let the people know where they can find your work and where you're at on the internet.
Yeah, it's WyoSports is combined Laramie Boomerang and Cheyenne are the Wyoming Tribune Eagle here in Cheyenne at Alex_M_Taylor22 on Twitter. Give me a follow. Looking forward to never been to Boulder before, so hopefully it's a good atmosphere. I saw it's a sellout, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, man. We'll see you there.
We'll see you out here. Yep. Appreciate you, Alex.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Later.
See ya.